Hi, this is Dr. Kate. This is the Form, Function, and Flow Lab podcast, and today I'm going to be talking about plantar fasciitis. I see it a ton in my office. Sometimes people actually come in specifically for it, and other times it's just another symptom they happen to tell me about, and they don't even realize that I treat something like that. So chiropractors are able to treat more than just the spine. So I do work on extremities, so that would include your feet. And a lot of times I can tie back your plantar fasciitis to another issue not related with your foot, whether it be something in your calf, your hamstring, your glutes, or even your neck. If your head is forward, it sends off your center of gravity, and then the ripple down effect is that we're clenching on with our calves, which creates a problem with the sole of the foot. That is a whole other, down the rabbit hole of what happened with this issue. So first we'll start with what is plantar fasciitis, because a lot of people think any foot pain is plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis is super common. I read one stat that 1 in 10 people will experience plantar fasciitis at some point in their life. And that is a good percentage of people. And some people, it can last for years, and it affects what that they have to give up the activities they love, like running or walking for exercise. So it's definitely something that needs attention and addressed. What plantar fasciitis is an inflammation of the plantar fascia, which is a fibrous sheet along the bottom of the foot, the sole of the foot, and it goes from the heel to the ball of the foot. And the other thing that attaches at the heel is the Achilles tendon. So the Achilles tendon is your big, thick, dense tendon at the back of the ankle that is the tendon for your gastroc muscle and your soleus muscle. Both are calf muscles. So that thick tendon comes down and attaches into your calcaneus or your heel bone. And then the plantar fascia attaches on the other side of the calcaneus. So they kind of talk to one another. So one symptom that people with plantar fasciitis also have are usually tight calves. And that makes sense because that tension on the calcaneus is going to have a reciprocal effect on the plantar fascia, which is attaching there. So people with plantar fasciitis can have pain along the sole of their foot and their heel. If you have pain on the top of the foot, it's not plantar fasciitis. If you have pain on the side of the heel, it's more likely tarsal tunnel syndrome. So a lot of times people come in with a foot issue, but it's maybe not exactly plantar fasciitis. So we want to treat it differently. But with plantar fasciitis, people typically come in and they've been in either a boot for so many weeks, or they can't go without shoes ever, like ever, even getting out of bed. They have had steroid injections or thinking about possibly getting surgery. So the downside with the boot is that you have lack of range of motion. So you're restricting movement of those joints in the foot, which is not great for lubricating the joint and all of that. And then with steroid injections, you run the risk of weakening the tendons and ligaments in your foot because chronic steroid use will weaken that. And especially if you're, getting it around your Achilles, that can weaken that as well. And you definitely don't want any tearing of those structures. And then with surgery, anytime you cut an area, it's going to create scar tissue post-surgery. And the plantar fascia is there for a reason. It is meant to make your foot into this little nice shock absorber. So it tensions out along the sole of the foot, and then the arch comes up like this. And the shock absorber mechanism is called the windlass maneuver mechanism, and it basically, when you walk, that arch will flatten out and then spring back up and flatten out and spring back up. So we want to have this nice, durable, healthy, strong foot and arch to make ourselves have a pain-free and less loaded gait. So the plantar fascia is there for a reason, and you want to use it how it's meant to be used. The problem with modern footwear and supportive shoes and having that big arch in your foot to artificially hold your foot up is that then we don't have to work for it. We just rely on the arch in our shoe to hold our foot up there, and we get kind of lazy and our foot atrophies. And then we have this weak foot that's not supporting our gait like it should. And then whenever you try to walk without that shoe, you're not going to be able to do it comfortably. So it's this terrible cycle of weakening the foot and then becoming reliant on the footwear that we're wearing that's supporting us. So how I would treat plantar fasciitis, just generally, not, every patient is very unique. So each person, depending on what's going on with them, is going to get a different kind of treatment. But very generally, I would say that if you came in and you had been rolling your foot with a iced water bottle and rolling your bottom of your foot with trigger point balls, those are all fine and they're not bad, but it's not getting to the root of the problem. So typically, what I would do would be address the musculature in your lower limb. So from hip, hamstring, calf to foot. And I'm looking for any tightness or asymmetries, those kind of things. And I would use any number of muscular techniques that we'd use in the office. We do active release technique, NIMO. We use rock blades, which are these little tools, metal tools that we use to gently scrape the area, but it's really a brain perception thing, and it's not as scary as it sounds. It's very light. And I really wouldn't get too hung up with spending a lot of time at the sole of the foot. We would address it with manual work with hands or the rock blades. Typically the rock blades very softly, just trying to down regulate the response from the brain to the sole of the foot. But I would check out more so the hamstrings and the glutes and the calves. Now, with the strength of the arch that might not be there anymore, I really like to take a look at your posterior tibial muscle. So we've got the gastroc, which is that big superficial calf muscle that feeds into your Achilles. Super important in that tightness issue that we're having possibly with plantar fasciitis. Next layer is soleus, also feeding into your Achilles tendon. Also important with that. But then deep to it is your posterior tibial muscle. And that tendon comes down around the ankle and into the sole of the foot and is involved with creating that arch in your foot. So I see is that weak and inhibited. We'll do some muscle work to it, try to stimulate it, try to see where we're having the issue, and then giving exercises to actually activate the calves. And that's so counterintuitive because we think tight and we think we want to stretch it, but that isn't always the answer. So we do the muscle work. We do show you some active stretches that can help with lengthening, but then we'll have you do calf raises in different planes to load the tissues without causing pain. So we want to slowly baby step you into being able to load the tissues again without creating that painful response from the brain. There's other things we do is we can use vibration therapy to help with the muscles And I love to use vibration on the sole of the foot because it gives a ton of great neural input into the foot, which is where we're trying to have the healing happening. And especially if you have plantar fasciitis, you're probably wearing very padded, supportive shoes all the time, so you're not getting a ton of good neural input to the sole of your foot. So doing some really light vibration on the sole of the foot helps with that. And then I'll also put just a piece of kinesio tape along the sole of the foot. It has that gentle stretch to it. And that's also a more long-term, subtle neural input, reminding your brain about that area that has been so dulled by socks, by shoes, by the boot you might have been wearing because of the plantar fasciitis, and helps to reconnect with that area. And sometimes I'll also tape up into the posterior tibial muscle to help with that arch support too. And then, of course, we work our way up, working the hamstrings and glutes and seeing if we have an issue there. Another thing that might play into how your foot is working is the mobility of your ankle. So checking people's mobility of their ankle. And I also do this on every single patient that has a foot issue, and they're always like, oh my goodness, why does the top of my foot hurt? And I picked this trick up from Dr. Perry Nicholson, and it's a lumbrical release. These little structural muscles in your foot, and I access them by, I tell the patients to use a little head of the eraser or their finger, and I have them work between the metatarsals and pinch in between of them and like wiggle until you almost feel like an electrical sensation when you find a spot that you're having the issue with, and you're working from the toes all the way up to the tarsal bone. So all the way up to where it feels like you can't fit your finger in between the metatarsals anymore. And I have people do that twice a day to kind of wake up the foot and bring that supportive nature that we need again with it. I would say a way to avoid ever having plantar fasciitis in the first place would be to slowly introduce yourself to wearing minimalist footwear and building that foot strength and doing strengthening of your arch, like short foot exercises. I have that linked. I can link that below that exercise. And doing that before you ever have an issue. Because it's very difficult to go from having plantar fasciitis to any kind of minimalist footwear until a long time afterwards, because you deconditioned your foot. Maybe they put you in a boot for weeks. You're even more deconditioned. To wear bare feet or minimalist footwear is going to be excruciating, and you have to do the work before you can ever wear something like that again. So maybe just baby stepping into strengthening your feet will be the way that you can eventually have strong enough feet to be able to support yourself, which we're made to be able to support our body in motion, and use that windlass mechanism to have that shock absorber for our foot. So yes, plantar fasciitis is, I think we get a little in the weeds, or short-sighted when we only focus on the foot, because that whole lower chain is really gonna not be able to work alone. You're not gonna be able to solely have a foot problem. You're gonna also have an ankle, calf, a knee, problem all the way up. As I said, it could be even something as far away as your neck, throwing off your center of gravity. So just my 2 cents on plantar fasciitis. We do see a lot of success with it in the office, and I think that with it being as common as it is, trying to get ahead of it before it even happens by strengthening your feet and your calves is really something that you might want to think of if you love doing these active things that require you to, run, walk, cycle, those kind of things. So you can't do much if you can't walk anywhere. If you have any questions about plantar fasciitis or what kind of footwear you should wear or what kind of strengthening exercises, I'll link the short foot exercise below and let me know.